Hi guys, my name is Chris Evers and welcome to Animal Embassy. This is a program that I've created specifically for the summer reading program, which is called Dwarfs, Dragons, and Giants of the Animal Kingdom. And we're very happy to be presenting this for the Serenius Booth Library in Newtown, Connecticut. We're very happy to be a part of the community. We've been to the library numerous times over the years. We also have a very nice relationship with the Catherine Violet Hubbard Animal Sanctuary right in Newtown. They share produce with us. They grow produce at the sanctuary, and that produce is partially shared with Animal Embassy so that we can feed our rescued and adopted animals. So we love Newtown, happy to be a part of your community. Thank you for welcoming us and thank you for joining us today. But I really want to thank the library for supporting Animal Embassy by bringing us back so that we can provide educational opportunities for you guys to get to learn about animals and about life. And our message is really about appreciating all of it, because all of the animals that you're going to see today are important, and all of the animals that you're going to see today are special. So let's dig in. Today's program, as I mentioned, is about dwarfs, dragons, and giants. And there happens to be a dwarf going across the set right now. That's Judy Hopps that just went across the set. We'll talk more about Judy Hopps later. But because the theme for the library program this summer is Imagine Your Story, I came up with a program that works with the imagination. So I want to start by having you all imagine with me a bearded dragon. I want you to go with me to your imagination. I'm going to go to my imagination. Amazingly, we can be in the same place, but totally different places at the same time. So I want you to find, and you may have to go deep into your imagination, but I want you to find a dragon. I want you to find a bearded dragon. And I want you to raise your hand if you have found your dragon. I found mine. My dragon has a red beard. How about your dragon? What color is your dragon's beard? Today, I had kids tell me that their dragon had a yellow beard, a green beard, a blue beard. My friend Ava, she's a little girl at a preschool that I work with. We were exploring our imagination at one of my programs at the preschool. And I asked Ava, did you find your dragon? And she said, oh yes, I found my dragon. And I said, well, what color was its beard? And she said that her dragon has a rainbow beard. And I asked her, does your dragon breathe fire? Because my dragon breathes water, and my dragon can actually put out fires. I like that. My dragon in my imagination is a rescued dragon. How about yours? In Ava's imagination, her dragon breathed ice cream. I said, Ava, I'd like to meet your dragon, especially on a hot summer day. She went further to say that while she was looking for her dragon, she ran into some traffic. I thought, gee, what kind of traffic did Ava run into in her imagination on her way to her bearded dragon? And this is what she said. She said that she met a Bigfoot. And I asked her if the Bigfoot was a nice guy, because I've never met a Bigfoot, not even in my imagination. She said, oh yes, he was very nice. He actually told her where to go to find the bearded dragon. I said, that's pretty cool. Is there anything else interesting about your dragon? I said to Ava. And she says, oh yes, my dragon poops out gumballs. Kids, I know that that sounds silly, and it's all right to be silly. And you know what? There's a book about this kind of topic. It's called Everybody Poops. And you can find it at the library. It's a true story. Everybody does. And during the program today, it could happen. It's why I've got this nice smooth surface here so that I can keep it clean. If an animal goes to the bathroom, I came prepared with hand sanitizer. I've got hand wipes and I got paper towels. So let's get moving here and let me introduce you to our first dragon. So our first dragon does not breathe fire, nor does he breathe water, nor does he breathe ice cream, nor is he actually a dragon, because dragons don't actually exist. So I named this one Figment. See, a figment is something that comes from your imagination, like dragons and monsters. But you know what? When I was a little boy, I thought monsters were real, and I thought that there was a monster in my closet and that it would come out of my closet when my parents would turn the lights off. So you know what they did? They left the light on in the closet. Did that make the dragon go away? Or was that dragon a figment of my imagination? Well, dragons are just that. But I'm about to introduce you to a real dragon. How could it be a real dragon and a figment at the same time? Well, that's because this is a bearded dragon right here, and it's very real, but it doesn't breathe fire, and it isn't actually a dragon. When you go to your library for the next time, and I hope it's soon, you could check out a book about dragons, mythical dragons, the ones that do breathe fire, and some of them can fly. Well, in your imagination, dragons could do whatever you want, like breathe ice cream and poop out gumballs. They could have red beards, blue beards, or no beard at all. See, this is actually a lizard. It's not a dragon. There are a number of lizards that get the name dragon. See, this is a bearded dragon, but I've got a water dragon, and I think that that may be why my dragon breathes water, because when we think about our imagination, we often use our imagination to think of things that don't really exist, but we might use things from real life to help us to create things in our imagination. This is a water dragon, and that's a bearded dragon, but neither of them breathe fire because they can't. It's not possible. And they aren't actually dragons. They're lizards, and this one's called the water dragon, and this one's name is Shuilong. And my friend that's been sitting here so nice and patient, waiting for his turn, this is a bearded dragon. Looks like he's taking a nap. He's decided, I'm just gonna go to sleep. That means he's comfortable. You know, sometimes they can sleep with one side of their brain, but they can be awake with the other. I wish we could do that. Wouldn't that be kind of cool to shut off part of your brain? It seems that some people do that sometimes. Kids, bearded dragons and water dragons are lizards. When you go back to the library, you could take a book out about mythical dragons, or you could take out a book about lizards, and in that book, you might find 3 different types of dragons. Because there's the bearded dragon, which you saw, and bearded dragons, they come from a place called Australia. Now, you don't need to know where that is, and neither does Figment. But Australia is a wonderful place where lots of beautiful creatures live. It's where the kangaroos and the koala bears play. I'd like to go there someday. And so would Sydney, the guy that's sitting on top of the crocodile. Sydney should be in Australia, which is why I named him Sydney. Sydney is actually the name of a city in Australia. Some of you might know that. If not, you could look at a map and you can find where bearded dragons, eclectus parrots, and even our next animal, which is a giant. Now, I want you to close your eyes again, and let's go back to that place that we visited before. It's a wonderful place. It's called your imagination. Now, it can be scary sometimes if you imagine scary things. So don't do that. Imagine nice things. I want you to imagine a giant. This isn't a giant that wants to hurt anybody. All right, giants can be really big, but so are people, and other animals are very small. So we're giants to them, but that doesn't mean we have to hurt them. We could be gentle giants. So in my imagination, I think of a gentle giant. And in my imagination, my giant is green. Ho, ho, ho. Some of you know the green giant. You're going to meet today a blue giant. And that blue giant's name is Blue. Can you imagine a blue giant? That'd be pretty cool, right? So what color is your giant? Raise your hand if your giant in your imagination is green. Raise your hand if it's blue. Raise your hand if it's yellow. Hey, you could see a rainbow-colored giant in your imagination. Ava saw a dragon with a rainbow-colored beard in hers. That's what I love about our imagination. Anything goes. And you know what? The library is a wonderful place to explore your imagination, because pretty much anything that you can conjure up in your imagination, you can find at the library. And if you can conjure up something in your imagination that you can't find at the library, you've got a really good imagination, and maybe, just maybe, you should be writing books yourself. I want to do that someday myself. So here's our first actual giant of the day. This is a giant cane toad. Not the giant that you probably were imagining in your imagination. This is a real giant. Those other giants that we might find in storybooks and fairy tales, like the jolly green giant that I was thinking about, They're also figments. They don't really exist, but there are giants on this planet, and we are one of them. Think of another real giant on this planet. A giraffe? Were you thinking about that? An elephant? A rhinoceros? A blue whale? They're all giants, and they're really, really big. Well, this too is a giant. I have a giant sitting on the table right now with a dwarf, by the way. This giant is a toad. Giants are the biggest of their kind. Dwarfs are the smallest of their kind. So this is a giant toad. It's the largest toad in the world. Cane toads actually do something that really is helpful to us. Sadly, a lot of people don't understand cane toads, and they say mean things about them. They've got bumpy skin. And what some people say about that is that that's gross that they have bumpy skin. And some people say that they have warts. You might not know what a wart is, and neither does that toad. And that toad couldn't get a wart because toads don't get warts. And if they don't get warts, they don't have warts, and they can't give you one. So everybody please repeat after me. Say, toads do not have warts. Say it again with me. Toads do not have warts. And if somebody tells you that they do, I'd like you to be polite, but I'd like you to say, well, actually, toads do not have warts. Instead, they do have bumpy skin. Not your next giant. Now, your next giant is named Raja. Now, you might have some idea of what Raja might look like, because I understand that Raja is a character from Aladdin. So some of you know that one. I bet you weren't expecting it to look like this. This is a tiger salamander. So I wanted to give it a tiger's name. And I know from the kids, because I haven't seen it yet myself, that there is a tiger in the movie Aladdin. Is it a good movie? Would you guys recommend it? I'll have to check it out someday. Now, why do they call this a tiger salamander? Because she's got stripes like a tiger does. It is one of the largest salamanders in the world. One of the smallest salamanders in the world lives in your backyard and my backyard, and it's called a redback salamander. And if you lift up some rocks and if you turn over some logs in your backyard, you might just find one of the littlest salamanders in the world. It's called a redback salamander. The one you just saw is actually a cousin of the spotted salamander. Now, if you look over there and you look over there, you can see a big black salamander with yellow spots. That's called a spotted salamander, not a tiger salamander because it doesn't have stripes. It's not called a leopard salamander, but they could because leopards have spots. Instead, it's called a spotted salamander. Makes sense? It's got spots. Hold on one second. I'm going to let our little dwarf Judy Hops back in her box, and we'll get back to talking about Judy a little bit later. Judy, why don't you scoot in there? You can take a break, sweetheart. So Judy is one of our dwarfs today. Before we get to Judy, I want to show you a different kind of dwarf. Now, you've seen a giant cane toad. You've seen a giant salamander. Now, look, they're not so big, but they are some of the biggest of their kind. And that's what makes them giants. Because dwarfs are the smallest of their kind, and giants are the biggest of their kind. So you're about to meet a dwarf, and his name is Caiman. And Caiman is a caiman. And I know what you're probably thinking, Chris, Caiman rhymes with caiman. You know, I love Dr. Seuss. We're going to get back to talking about Dr. Seuss in a little bit. But that's part of how I learned to rhyme from my favorite Dr. Seuss books, like The Butter Battle and Horton Hears a Who. That's a good one. The Lorax, one of my all-time favorites. So this animal is a dwarf. Now, I know that some of you have seen a movie about some dwarfs. So I want you to close your eyes again, use your imagination, and find a dwarf in your imagination. Now, it probably doesn't look like Caiman the caiman, because you're probably imagining one of the dwarfs that came from, what was that movie? Mary Poppins and the Seven Dwarfs, I think it was. No, wait a second. Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs. No, wait, 9 dwarfs. It was 12 dwarfs. No, hold on. It was Moana and the 16 dwarfs. No, that wasn't it. How about Mr. Toad? You can't jump off the table. Get back here, Mr. Toad. By the way, his name is Senor Bufo. Can everybody say, hola, Senor Bufo? Kids, It was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I know, I was just seeing if you were all paying attention. This is a dwarf caiman. It doesn't look like Sleepy. It doesn't look like Grumpy. It doesn't look like Poopy. Wait a second, there wasn't a dwarf named Poopy. But that would be kind of cute, I think, actually. This one's name is Eamon, but in the country where Eamon might like to live. I was going to go there before COVID-19, and you know, that stopped us from taking big trips. And I was going to go to a place called Guyana. Everybody say Guyana. Well, in Guyana, they have a different language. They speak English there, but they speak it a little bit differently than us. Kind of like if you go to Boston, they don't say things quite like we do. You don't have to go that far. You could go to an island right off the shores of New York City. It's called Staten Island. They don't talk like we do either. They don't talk like we do in Australia. They don't talk like we do in Ireland. They don't talk like we do in Scotland or England, but we're all speaking the same language. So in Guyana, instead of saying Eamon, they would more likely say it like this. Can everybody say Eamon? Okay, good. Now I want you to say caiman. And so his real name is Eamon the caiman. And Eamon the caiman is a dwarf. So he's not going to get very big. You know, the girls, they only get to be like 3.5 feet long. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The boys, they can get to be 5 feet long. Okay, that's pretty big, but that's not big when you compare it with that guy. That's the skull from a Nile crocodile, along with the Australian saltwater crocodiles. They're the biggest crocs on the planet. I went to a place called Africa. I love it there. I went there because I wanted to see lots of different kinds of animals. I went to the Masai Mara, where the giant crocodiles live. They don't just live there, but a lot of them do, because the zebras have to cross that river when they're migrating. They got to go one way, and then they got to come back. And those crocs are waiting. If those crocs are big enough to catch and eat a zebra, do you think it would be a good idea? Excuse me, Senior Buffo. I just need you to move forward just a little bit. Thank you, buddy. Do you think it would be a good idea for me to go swimming with giant crocodiles? That would be a really bad idea. And if I did go swimming with giant crocodiles, and if I did get caught by a giant crocodile, whose fault would that be? That would be my fault. Kids, when we're in nature, we have to be respectful of the animals and respectful of ourselves. So you don't go picking up a cobra. You don't go poking at a rattlesnake. You don't go to pet a tiger in the wild. You give these guys their space. You might like to pick up the rattlesnake, but you know that wouldn't be a good idea. You might like to go swimming with a crocodile, but that certainly wouldn't be a good idea. We want to maintain a distance. We want to love them, but love them from a distance. This creature right here would be in South America. This creature right here, I found in Africa, where he belongs. I wish that the cane toad could be in South America. I wish Sydney the parrot could be in Australia. I wish that tiger salamander could be out west in the United States, where that tiger salamander should be living, because I wish all these animals could be free. I wish they didn't have to be with me. I travel the world so that I can see the animals in their natural habitat. And do you know, when I went to see this giant, I got to meet his whole family. That's the silverback. He's the biggest guy. He could have hurt me if he wanted to, and so could have his son. His son was like a teenager, so a big, strong guy. And I was waiting as he was coming down the trail towards us to get back to his family. And I was waiting so I could have my picture with him when he came by. We're in nature, in Africa, in a place called Rwanda, up on an ancient volcano. That volcano was extinct, but I don't want to see those gorillas go extinct. When we went up on that volcano, something amazing happened. I was kneeling down, waiting for the gorilla to come past me. Suddenly, I felt something on my knee. And I looked down at my knee to see a big, hairy hand, and it wasn't mine. Whose big, hairy hand was on my knee? A gorilla? Kids, he could have smacked me. He could have punched me. He could have shaken me silly. But he didn't do any of those things. He could have pushed me right out of the way. Instead, he went past the other people, and then he gently put his hand on my knee, and then he gently pushed off and went back to his family. So do you think that he was being mean, or do you think perhaps he was curious? I think that he was curious, and so was I. So what do you think would be a good name for a giant, curious monkey? I called him George, of course. Is that what you were thinking? I hope you guys know those books. Just like those Dr. Seuss books, I always loved the Curious George books. I know some of you are into the Captain Underpants books, and that's fine, but check out some of the others, like Curious George. There's another one I love called Verde. Speaking of Verde, that means green. This is a giant, but it's not the jolly green giant. This is Solomon. He's a giant skink. Now, I did not say stink, although stink rhymes with skink. He is a skink, S-K-I-N-K, skink. And my skink does not stink. He is the largest type of skink in the world. And look at that tail. See how he holds on to me like a monkey? Monkeys have a tail like that. It's called a prehensile tail. If you guys like Chris and Martin Krat, you know the wild krats? You probably know that word, prehensile. Well, he's got a prehensile tail like many monkeys do. So where do you think he would live? On the ground, in the sea, or in a tree? This lizard would live in a tree. He's got a tail and he's got sharp claws that help him to stay up in that tree. Those sharp claws are not for scratching me. They're for holding on. Now, I bet you guys, many of you, know that book that I mentioned before called The Lorax. I like to say that Solomon is my Lorax. If you know the book or if you've seen the movie, you know that the Lorax, he speaks for something or someone. Actually, he speaks for everyone. But really in the movie or in the book, you might recall that at one point, that Lorax, he jumps up on a stump, and that stump was cut. The whole tree came down by the Onceler. Remember this? And the Onceler was cutting down all the trees. Well, you know what? That's what they did on Solomon's Island. They came and they cut down all the trees. They didn't just take a couple of them. They didn't just take what they needed. They took the whole forest. That's not right. That's not okay. And you know what? Now, if people do that kind of thing, in most parts of the world, they could get in big trouble for that. You're not allowed to cut down a whole forest, and we shouldn't. And if you do cut down a tree, boys and girls, I want to ask you, what do you think you should do? Now, not that you're cutting down trees, but if a grown-up cuts down a tree, and sometimes we need to because they could be dangerous where they are, they could be old and falling down. We all know about that. We just had a big storm around here. So what should we do if we cut down one tree? I had a 5-year-old boy yesterday named Owen. And you know what Owen suggested should be done? If you cut down a tree, you should plant another one. Owen is 5 years old. Kids, do you think it was 5-year-olds that went down and cut the forest on Solomon's Island? No, it wasn't 5-year-old kids, it was grown-ups. But here, Owen, a 5-year-old kid, he was able to tell me that if one tree gets cut down, we should plant another. Raise your hand if you've ever planted a tree. Good. Raise your hand if you've ever planted flowers. Excellent, because we all should do that. And do you know what I do every year on my birthday? I do 3 things. First, I say thank you to my mother and father because without them, I wouldn't have a birthday, right? So I appreciate that they brought me into this world and they cared for me. Number 2, I have cake and I eat it too because it's my birthday. I might also open up a present or two. It's my birthday. Number 3, and I think one of the most important of all, I plant a tree. And next year, I want to do something extra special. I don't just want to plant a tree. I want to plant a whole butterfly garden. And if we do things that helps the birds and the bees by planting flowers and trees, are we just helping ourselves? Or are we giving a gift to the entire world? We're giving a gift to the entire world. I want to make the world a better place. It's why I named that little bunny rabbit that you saw, and I'm going to take her back out, Judy Hopps. Because, you know, in the movie, Zootopia, raise your hand if you know that movie. I thought it was a very cute movie. I like that movie. And I like that Judy Hopps, she forgave Nick the Fox, even though Nick the Fox cheated her in the beginning of the movie. Do you remember that? Nick the Fox cheated her, but she forgave Nick the Fox. And she helped Nick the Fox to be a good guy instead of a bad guy. Maybe Nick the Fox needed somebody to give him a chance. Maybe Nick the Fox needed somebody to love him, and Judy did. And so Judy and Nick the Fox became good friends, and Nick the Fox was a good guy, and he helped Judy to accomplish her goal. So this Bun Bun helps me to talk to kids about goals. So you might not know what a goal is, but Judy had a big one, and I bet you know what she wanted to be. She wanted to be a police officer. So that was her goal. And did she want to be a bad police officer, or did she want to be a good police officer? Of course she wanted to be a good one. Kids, there are some bad people in the world, but most of the people in this world are good people. And Judy wanted to be a good bunny rabbit, and she wanted to help everybody to live in a happier, safer world. Well, I do too, but I didn't choose to be a police officer, but I did choose to be an animal rescuer. So kids, I rescue and adopt these animals. Poor little Judy Hopps, she was living with the family, and they weren't being kind and they weren't being gentle. I think part of that is because some kids, they need to be taught how to be kind and gentle. So I want to teach you a little something right now about how to do that. So I want you to take your whole hand like this. I want you to pretend that you're reaching through your computer, reaching through my computer and through my camera, and reaching out to touch Judy Hopps. Now, if you're trying to touch with one finger, please don't do that. If you're trying to touch with two fingers, please don't do that. A lot of people are teaching kids to touch with one or two fingers. I don't ever teach kids that. Even my youngest preschool students that I teach, and I teach a lot of preschool students, and I've been doing it for years. I teach them two words. You ready? First word, kind. You know what it means. Second word, gentle. I bet most of you know what that means too. But when we start off life, we don't always know what these things mean. We certainly haven't heard the words yet. Some of us, I think, are born this way. Others of us need a little bit extra help. So show me your whole hand. Put your fingers together. When we touch somebody gently, we're going fast or slow? Slow. When we touch somebody gently, are we touching hard or soft? Soft. Should we pull the ears or no ear pulling? No ear pulling, right? Should we pull the tail or no tail pulling? No tail pulling. Should we pull the whiskers or no whisker pulling? Certainly no whisker pulling. Boys and girls, would you want anybody pulling your ears? No. Would you want anybody pulling your hair? No. Would you want anybody pulling your tail? Wait a second. We don't have a tail, but if you did have a tail, would you want somebody to pull on it? Of course not. So let's not do it to somebody else. I think those kids were not taught how to be kind and gentle, which is why I teach all kids how to be kind and gentle. Because if we teach them and if we show them, then they can learn. So watch me again. Pretend with me now, use that imagination, reach through the camera. Don't touch her on the head. Just go gently down the body like that. She likes that. It feels good to her. Once an animal comes to me, I want them to know that they are safe. I want them to be happy, and I want them to be healthy. Kids, it's my job to keep my animals happy, healthy, and safe. So if it's my job to keep them all happy, healthy, and safe, who's being a good parent to Judy Hopps? Me. Who's being a good parent to Senor Buffo? That would be me. That's the toad. Who would be a good parent to Sydney the parrot? That would also be me. And who is going to be a good parent to my giant skink Solomon? That would be me. And that poor guy, he was living with his family on the Solomon Islands when they cut down his forest and took him away from his home. Now, he may be a giant skink, but it was giants that came and cut down the forest. And what kind of giants were they? They were giants just like me and just like you. They were humans. They were people. But were they being gentle giants? Were they taking good care of the earth? Were they caring about all the animals that live there? Kids, I want you to love life the way I do. Love them all. You know, some people say mean things about Senor Buffo because they don't even know him. Well, we shouldn't be saying mean things about anybody, especially somebody you don't know. People look at him and they see that he has bumpy skin. I'll show that to you. Some people think that he has what's called warts. Can you guys say the word wart? Raise your hand if you've ever had a wart. Sometimes we get a little bump on our finger or on one of our toes. Those sometimes are what are called warts. Now, they could be a little uncomfortable, like a bug bite, but it's not the end of the world. Eventually, they go away. These bumps are never going away because toads have bumpy skin. That's the way he's supposed to be. So let's imagine again, reach through that camera, reach through your computer, don't touch it. And I want you to imagine that you're touching Signor Buffo. And how would he feel? He's not slimy. There's nothing gross about him. He's bumpy. He's an amphibian. He's not like the others. But that's what my mother said about me. Christopher, you're not like the other toads. Wait a second. She didn't say it wasn't like the other toads. She said, Christopher, you're not like the other kids. And why? Because I loved toads. I loved salamanders. I loved frogs. I loved snakes. I loved turtles. I loved bunny rabbits and guinea pigs too. Because boys and girls, I love all life. And I see the beauty in every animal, not just the colorful ones like Sydney. I love him for his colors, but I love him for his colors. I love him for his shape, but I love him for his shape. They're both different. So do you think I love one of them more than the other? I love them the same. I love them for who they are, not for who I want them to be, because I'm happy that they are who they are. Do you know, animals don't get to choose who they want to be. They're born the way they are. Now, some of them go through a big change. Can everybody say metamorphosis? Now, metamorphosis is a really big change. For example, I'm going to show you another type of amphibian. You've seen two so far. You saw the tiger salamander. You saw the cane toad. Now you're going to see a red-eyed tree frog. Now, they were made famous by a cartoon character that many of you probably don't know. I don't know where he went, but the show was called Go Diego Go. And I don't know where the guy went. I haven't seen him in a long time. But when that show existed, Diego made these frogs famous. These are called red-eyed tree frogs, and you can see why. And they have suction cups on their fingers and toes so that they don't fall. They live in tropical forests in places like Costa Rica. You may not know where that is, and neither do they, because frogs don't know how to read a map. Frogs don't have a GPS in their car. Frogs don't vote for the president. Us grown-ups are going to be doing that very soon. You kids will get to do that someday. Frogs don't vote for the president. They don't read maps. They don't even have a car, so they can't have a GPS. So they don't know what country they're from, but I wish they could be there. I wish these frogs could be where they're supposed to be. I wish they could be in their natural habitat, but they're stuck because they were born with people. They're stuck with people. But you know what? The people that had these frogs, they didn't want them anymore, and that makes me sad. Because if we're going to bring a life into our life, like a goldfish, or a dog, or a cat, we now have a responsibility. Can everybody say that word? Responsibility. It means that we have to take care of them. They can't take care of themselves if they're with us. But you know what? If they were born in nature, they would take care of themselves. The mom doesn't take care of the baby frog. The dad doesn't take care of the baby frog. If you're a baby frog, for most frogs, you take care of yourself. Guys, when I was a baby, do you think I could take care of myself? There's no way. When you were a baby, could you take care of yourself? There's no way. You can't do it. Birds can't do it, and mammals can't do it. And we're not birds. Although sometimes I wish I was a bird because I'd like to be able to fly. And I could fly in my dreams because dreams are part of our imagination. So I could fly all over the world when I was a little kid in my dreams. And I regularly flew to Africa, India, the Amazon. Hey, these are the places that I like to explore. Haven't been able to get to the Amazon yet, but do you think I'm going to go there someday? You bet. I can't wait. And I'd like to bring some of my animals with me because I'd let them go free. if I could. But because these animals were born with people, do they get to go free, or are they stuck with me? They're stuck with me, but that's all right, because I'm not a bad guy to be stuck with. I'm a good guy to be stuck with, because it's my job to love these animals and to take good care of them. And who's going to keep them happy? Who's going to keep them healthy? Who's going to keep them safe? Who does that for you? Parents. Who's going to be a good parent to Chancho? I will be. Now, you might not know what Chancho means, but I'm going to tell you. In Spanish, Chancho means pig. Now, why would I name a frog pig? Well, I named him that because he eats like a pig, so he can get very big, so he can sleep for a very long time. This frog can sleep for 2 whole years. 2 years. For 2 years, he doesn't see anybody. We had to go for a few months without going and seeing our friends and family. That was tough enough. This guy can go for 2 years without seeing anybody, because he buries himself underground and goes to sleep for up to 2 years. If he's going to go to sleep for 2 years, that means he eats no food, he drinks no water for 2 whole years. Kids, it's hard enough for us to get through one night without waking up. Raise your hand if you ever woke up in the middle of the night because you wanted a glass of water. Raise your hand if you ever woke up in the middle of the night because you wanted something to eat. Raise your hand if you ever woke up in the middle of the night because you were scared. Raise your hand if you ever woke up in the middle of the night because you had to go to the bathroom. Raise your hand if you ever woke up in the middle of the night because you already did go to the bathroom. I admit it, it hasn't happened in a very long time, but it did when I was a young kid. It's not the end of the world. It was an accident, right? But we work so that we don't have those accidents anymore, because where should we be going to the bathroom? In the bathroom. Now, this guy, he just goes wherever he needs to. It's the way it is. In nature, the animals can just go to the bathroom. They don't have to go to a bathroom, and they don't have to raise their hand and say, "Excuse me." So Chancho is an African bullfrog. His name means pig in Spanish, and I named him Chancho because he eats like a pig, so he can get very big, so he can sleep for how long? Show me with your fingers. Good. 2 years. 2 years. Imagine how much you would miss. Kids, that would be like if you went to sleep on your 3rd birthday and you didn't wake up until your 5th birthday. That would be like if you went to sleep on your 4th birthday and you didn't wake up until your 6th birthday. That would be like if you went to sleep on your 2nd, I think we did that one already, your 7th birthday and you didn't wake up until your 9th birthday. You'd miss a lot. You'd miss your mother's birthday twice. You'd miss your father's birthday twice. You'd miss 2 4th of Julys. You'd miss 2 Memorial Days. You would miss 2 Veterans Days and 2 of your own birthdays. This frog can sleep for 2 years. Some people look at him and they see his belly and they say something that's not nice. I say he has a rather round belly, but some people look at him and say, "Ew, gross, it's a big fat frog." I know it sounds funny the way that I just said it, but is it really funny, or is it actually mean? It's mean, it's not polite, it's rude, and even if he did weigh too much, would that be our business, or would that be his business? That would be his business. But kids, he doesn't weigh too much. He doesn't need to get exercise. He actually doesn't want to exercise. Look, I don't always want to exercise, but we need to, because we need to stay in shape so that we can be healthy. So we eat a proper diet with healthy foods. We exercise, which is pretty easy for kids to do because you like to play. You're getting exercise while you're playing. Do you think this frog does a lot of jumping with a belly like that? He's too heavy for jumping. Do you think that frog does a lot of swimming with a belly like that? Do you know what that frog does? He eats and he sleeps. He eats and he sleeps and he eats and he sleeps some more. So that when it's time to go to sleep, he's ready. He wants to be ready all the time. Because when the rain stops and the water dries up, can everybody say evaporate? When the water evaporates, which means it dries up, goes back up into the clouds, those clouds go somewhere else. It might not rain again where he lives for 2 years. Do you think he's fat, or do you think he needs to be like that? He absolutely needs to be like that. And I want to show you something really cool. Everybody say the word adaptation. Now, adaptations are the things that help animals to live. They do the things that animals need. For example, birds like Sydney have wings so that they can fly. Fish have fins so they can swim. Those tree frogs have suction cups so they can climb. Solomon, the prehensile-tailed skink, has that monkey's tail, which is why they call him a monkey-tailed skink, so that he can climb and he doesn't fall out of those big, tall trees that he used to live in. Chancho has a special eyelid. Now watch this. Now, I didn't hurt him to do that. Do it again. Now, if you noticed, I'm going to bring him a little closer so you can see that better, perhaps. If you couldn't see it before, I'll bring him closer. I'll show you that again. Everybody say nictitating membrane. That's a nictitating membrane. I'm not hurting him to do that. I'm being very gentle. Don't worry. He closes his eye, but he can still see. That's amazing. That's kind of like goggles. If you guys ever go snorkeling or you go swimming at the swimming pool, you probably put on goggles or you put on a face mask, right? So that you protect your eyes. Well, when Chancho goes swimming, he closes that eye, but he doesn't swim very much because he's got a belly like that. And if he goes to swim very often or jumps, then he's not going to have a belly like that. And he's not going to be able to sleep for how long? 2 years. So when he digs a hole underground, he doesn't want the sand or the dirt to get in his eyes. He doesn't have to wear a mask or goggles. He just closes his eyes and he can still see. So we can put on a mask. We can put on goggles. He doesn't have to. He just closes his eyes and he can still see. Excuse me, got to fix my hair there. I don't have as much as I used to. I got to fix the ones I got. So kids, you've seen a lot of really cool animals today. I got a couple more to show you, okay? How about another giant? That frog, he made it to the program because he is one of the biggest types of frogs in the world. He's actually the second biggest type of frog in the world. The biggest frog in the world is called the Goliath frog. The biggest heron, which is a type of a bird. We have one in Connecticut and New York called the little green heron. That's one of the smallest herons in the world. The Goliath heron is one of the biggest. Because if your name is Goliath, like the Goliath beetle, you're a big guy. So you're going to meet another Goliath, and I named her Goliath. And she's got 8 legs. I like to tell people that before I bring her out because I don't want anybody to freak out. I don't want anybody to say anything mean because I love her. I don't want to hear somebody say something mean about somebody that I love because I've already told you guys that I am like the parent to my animals. So I love them, and I certainly don't want to hear anybody say anything mean about somebody that I love. So give me a second here while I get her out. Goliath is what's called a Goliath bird-eating spider. It is, as far as scientists know, the largest type of spider in the world. With their legs, they can be as big around as a dinner plate. The round part that you see in the back is called the abdomen. Their abdomen can get to be as big as a baseball. So this is the largest species of spider in the world. And because of it, what do they call it? A Goliath bird-eating spider. It happens to be a type of spider called the tarantula. And you know what? They don't want to hurt us. But a lot of people think that they're mean. A lot of people think that they're bad. And some people even say that they're gross. That's not fair, and it's not nice. And unfortunately, oftentimes it's grown-ups. Grown-ups sometimes were taught when we were kids. I know a lot of the kids that I grew up, they were taught that that is scary. A lot of grown-ups are afraid. And why? Because they weren't taught to understand them. I want you to love her. You could love her from a distance. You don't have to touch her or hold her. I don't touch her or hold her because she's afraid of me. She may be a giant spider, but who's a much bigger giant? We are. So she knows she should be afraid of us. Because you know what a lot of people do to spiders? They whack them. That's not nice to do. Not only is it not nice, it's not right. You know, when I was a kid, I remember there was one time I was out on the playground, I saw an ant and I stepped on it. Raise your hand if you've ever done something like that yourself. I want you to think about it the way I think about it now. I feel bad about what I did to that ant because that ant had a life, that ant had a home, that ant had a family, and that ant had a job. Now you might think, wait a second, ants don't have jobs. They're not going to be lawyers. They're not going to be truck drivers. They're not going to be doctors. They're not going to be animal rescuers. But they do have a job. They clean up what's left over from the other animals. So they have a really important job. So what did I take from that ant when I stepped on it? I took away everything. I don't want to do that. I want to be a gentle giant, and I want you to grow up to be one too. So you could say that you're scared of Goliath. You could say that you're uncomfortable or nervous. And you know what? I would suggest check out a book from the library and learn about them. They're very special creatures, and they actually help us a lot. You know how? Spiders eat mosquitoes, and mosquitoes can carry diseases, and diseases can make us sick. And we all know about that these days because we weren't even allowed to leave our homes for months. Remember that? You couldn't go to school. I couldn't go to schools with the animals to see the kids. We're not at the library today, which is normally where I would be doing programs with you guys instead of this way. But it's so that we all can help to keep each other safe and hopefully get rid of this thing called Corona. You know about it, right? So kids, I want us to learn that animals each help in the environment. Bats eat mosquitoes. Mosquitoes carry diseases. Spiders eat mosquitoes. Mosquitoes carry diseases. Do we want more disease on this planet? No way. We want less. Blue, what are you doing? You, come here. By the way, this is Blue. Blue is our next giant. You saw Judy. Judy was a Dutch dwarf rabbit. Dwarfs, as we've discussed, are the smallest of their kind, like Caiman the caiman. Giants are the biggest of their kind, like Senor Bufo, the cane toad, and Solomon, the largest type of skink in the world. Well, guess what? This is the largest type of rabbit in the world. Blue, come here, baby. I'll give you a little bit of banana. Come here. Let me make sure it's good first. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see if we can get Blue to have a little banana. All right. Let's see if we can get Blue to stand up. You want to try that? Let's see. Hold on a second. That's a little slippery for her. Blue, come on over here. Come here, baby girl. Come here. Can you stand up for everybody? Can you stand up? Oh, that's a good girl. What a good girl. Did you see how big she is? That's not a small bunny. That's a Flemish giant rabbit, and her name is Blue. And why did I name her Blue? Because this is considered a blue coloration. Now, I know it's not blue like my eyes are blue or blue like the sky is blue, but she is a grayish blue color. She's actually the cousin to our native rabbit, the cottontail. Flemish giant rabbits are actually a relative of the European hare. Now, I don't mean hair like you got hair on your head, but hair like the snowshoe hare. I bet you guys know about the snowshoe hare. Snowshoe hares change their color in the wintertime. They turn white. They lose their brown coat and they turn white. That's pretty cool, right? That's about camouflage. That's about helping them to blend in to their environment so that they don't get caught by predators. Well, you know what? Blue doesn't have the colors for camouflage. Blue was somebody's pet. And you know what they did? They let her go to a local park called Pound Ridge Reservation. It's one of my favorite places to go and explore. Now, Blue can go with me there, but she can't live there by herself. She doesn't know what a fox is. She doesn't know what a coyote or a bobcat or a weasel or a red-tailed hawk or a great horned owl, and all of those animals are predators, and they would gladly eat a rabbit. So I'm glad that my friend found Blue, and I helped her to catch Blue, and Blue was very scared. She didn't know who we were. She's a big rabbit, but who's the giant? We're both giants because she is the largest rabbit in the world, and we are a very large animal too. So do you think the smaller ones could be scared of the bigger ones? That's why I want them to know that we're gentle giants. So when I pet Blue, I'm very careful to be very gentle with her. I use my whole hand, and even that still makes her a little bit nervous. She's still a little bit shy. But by giving her things that she loves, this is a treat for her. She doesn't get a lot of blueberries or strawberries or raspberries or bananas or apples, but a little bit is good for her. And if she knows that she gets those things from me, then is she going to be afraid of me, or do you think she's going to trust me? I have to earn my animals' trust, because oftentimes when they come to me, other people weren't being kind and they weren't being gentle. So now I've got two last animals that I'd like to share with you. So hold on to your hats and hold on to your seat, because we're about to have our grand finale. So when we talk about hares, I can't help but think about a storybook that I remember about a race. And it was a race between a hare and another creature. Can anybody think of what the other creature was? If you're thinking it was the tortoise and the hare, you're thinking right. Here's the tortoise, and this also happens to be a giant. This is called a sulcata tortoise, and sulcata tortoises are the third largest type of tortoise on the planet. So the biggest one of all, the actual giant of all giants when it comes to tortoises, is called the Galapagos tortoise. The second biggest of all is called the Aldabra tortoise. The third biggest of all is the sulcata tortoise. Blue, you're blocking the tortoise. So the sulcata tortoise is the third biggest. Galapagos is the biggest, and Aldabra is second. Kids, there are books about all of these creatures at the library and many, many, many other topics. I hope that you all get back to the library as soon as you can. I know I'm going to, because I can't explore the world the way I want to. I can't get on a plane right now and fly to the other side of the planet like I'd like to. I just don't think it's safe right now. So I'm going to wait until I feel safe. And then I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to fly somewhere far, far away. I don't even know where yet. But do you think I could go to the library and figure it out? I sure can, because at the library, you can study anything that you want. So make sure you get back there as soon as you can. The next animals that I'd like to share with you, one of them is a lizard, and it's a cousin of a lizard that I bet you guys have heard of, called the Komodo dragon. But before we see the Komodo dragon, I want to give these guys a little time. Actually, I'm not showing you a Komodo dragon, but it's a cousin of one. I want to show you a bird who you've been seeing, but we haven't talked a lot about. His name is Sydney. I love Sydney very much. I'm very sad. Sydney had a bad thing happen to him a few weeks ago, about a month ago, actually. He had what's called a stroke. You young kids wouldn't know about this, but older people sometimes get these things. For Sydney, he's not old enough that this kind of thing should be happening to him. But you know what? The people that had him before I got him, they didn't feed him the right food, and they didn't allow him to get any exercise. He stayed locked up in a cage for about 5 years. He was only eating seeds. That's not okay. Mostly what he was eating was sunflower seeds, and he loved them very much. But that doesn't mean that that was a proper diet for him. He should be eating fruits. He should be eating nuts. He should be eating seeds. He should be eating vegetables. He should be eating a lot of different things. But they only gave him one thing. And unfortunately, that hurt his heart. And that caused a problem for him. He's had to learn how to talk again. He's had to learn how to climb again. He hasn't learned yet if he can fly again. He may never fly again. But we're going to love him. We're going to take good care of him. We take him on field trips. He gets out into nature. But you know what? I wish he could be living in Australia where he belongs. It's why his name is Sydney. Wouldn't you like to be there, buddy? Do you know Australia is on the other side of the planet? It's where the kangaroos and the koala bears play. I'd like to go there someday. I'd like to bring Sydney with me. I'd like to bring the bearded dragon with me. I'd like to bring Verde, my green tree python, with me. Because you know what they all share in common with my White's tree frogs, which are one of the biggest tree frogs in the world? They're all supposed to be in Australia. I wish they could be there. But because they're born with people, do they get to go free, or are they stuck with me? They're stuck with me. And that's not a bad place to be stuck. Because you know what? I bought a whole farm, and we called it Flying Pig Farm. We call it Flying Pig Farm, and it's our sanctuary, and it's the sanctuary to these animals. I don't live in this building. I bought this building for them. A whole building just for my animals. My house is next door. But we all love to get outside. I can't let these animals go free. The family that let Blue go free, they didn't do the right thing. That's not a wild bunny, that's a pet bunny. Pets need to stay with people, people that know what they're doing. And wild animals need to stay in the wild where they belong. So although I'd like Sahara to be in Africa, she can't go there. She's never been there. So boys and girls, the last animal that you're going to see today, or animals, are two more giants. One of them a cousin of the Komodo dragon, and the other one is called a boa constrictor. Now, boa constrictors are snakes. And there are a lot of people that are afraid of spiders. There's also a lot of people that are afraid of snakes. You know, snakes aren't bad guys, neither are spiders. Spiders, as we talked about, eat mosquitoes, which can carry diseases, which could make us sick. We all know about that because we've been wearing these things a lot, right? Anybody recognize that? Hey, I'd be happy if I never had to put one of those on again. If there are animals that are actually helping us so that we don't get sick, we should be gracious. We should be thankful. We should be grateful. And we should say thank you. We shouldn't be saying mean things about them. So to people that say that snakes are bad, well, they don't know snakes. To people that say that snakes are gross, well, I want to help them to appreciate life in a different way. All life, in my opinion, is beautiful. Every one of these creatures is special, just like every one of you is special. No two of us are the same. Every one of us is different. That doesn't make us weird. That doesn't make us gross. That makes you, you, and that makes me, me. And that's who I want to be. So boys and girls, the next one that you're going to see is named Brazil. And the reason I named her Brazil is because she should be far, far away in a place called Brazil. So brace yourselves because this is a big one. So boa constrictors are one of the biggest snakes in the world. The reticulated python is known to be the longest snake in the world. Then there's the anaconda, the green anaconda, and the green anaconda is the heaviest snake in the world. So those are the two absolute biggest. So those are the two giants of the snake world. In Connecticut and New York, the biggest one we have is called the black rat snake. And as its name suggests, they do like to eat things like rats and chipmunks and squirrels and mice. And you know what? Mice and rats can carry ticks and fleas can carry disease. We talked about that already. Do we want more or less disease on the planet? We want less. So instead of saying we don't like snakes, you could say that you're nervous. You could say that you're uncomfortable. You could say that you're afraid. Sadly, a lot of grown-ups, instead they say they don't like them or they say that they're gross. Kids, that's because a lot of us grown-ups were taught that way. I'm not teaching you that way. Snakes are beautiful creatures and they help us. This snake lost its life because people wanted this beautiful skin. Not because this snake was hurting somebody, but because they wanted this beautiful skin. I think you would agree with me. There's one animal on this planet that should be wearing this skin. And who is that animal? The boa constrictor that had it in the first place. This isn't a shedded skin. This is the skin. So who should be wearing this skin right now? The boa constrictor. So that's sad. I'm sure you'll agree with that. But here's the happy part. You're not allowed to take these animals from nature anymore. They're not allowed to take that skin from them anymore. So that makes me happy. They're protected. That's a good thing because every animal in nature is important to their community, just like every one of you is important to your community. So this is Brazil, and Brazil is a boa constrictor, one of the largest types of snakes in the world. And no, I will not be letting Brazil have a play date with Sydney the parrot. That would not be a good idea. Because boa constrictors are predators. That doesn't mean they're mean, and that doesn't mean they're bad, but that does mean that they eat meat, right? That's what predators do. So can everybody say carnivore? Can everybody say herbivore? And can everybody say omnivore? Carnivores are the meat eaters, herbivores are the plant eaters, and omnivores eat both. So while I put our friend Brazil away, I want to help you guys to imagine our last animal today. So the last animal that you're going to meet today is, as I mentioned, a cousin of the Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon is not any more of a dragon than the bearded dragon that you met today and the water dragon that you met today. They're lizards. But the Komodo dragon is the biggest lizard in the world. They get huge. This one gets big too. It's the second biggest lizard in the world. And if you've ever seen the show Jessie, some of the older kids might know the show Jessie. This is the same lizard that is on that show. Now, not the exact same one. That's called a water monitor lizard, and it is the second largest type of lizard in the world. So give me a second here while I take her out. Her name is Borneo, named after a country on the other side of the world, which is where this lizard should be, on the other side of the world. And I wish I could bring her there. I named her Tai. And the reason I named her Tai is because I named her a word that actually means free. Because where do you think I would like her to be? I would like her to be free. I wish she could be free. But because she was born with people, she doesn't get to go free. She's stuck. And for now, she's stuck with me. So I've got to give her what she needs to be happy, to be healthy, and to be safe. One of the things I have to do with all of my animals is make sure that they have a healthy diet. In nature, they would eat things like freshwater crabs. What I just gave her is called a crayfish. Now, I like crayfish too, but I have to give my animals what they need to eat. And she needs a balanced diet, just like we do. But in her diet, she's not having fruits and vegetables because she's, again, a carnivore. And what do the carnivores eat? They eat meat, and it could be all different kinds of meat. In this case, it's crayfish. In nature, it could be mice, it could be snakes, it could be lizards, it could be all different kinds of things. And she's not a predator because she's mean or bad. She has to eat meat. That's what they do. So for the animals that I have that eat fruits and vegetables, what do I have to give them? Fruits and vegetables. For the animals that eat meat, what do I have to give them? I have to give them meat. I have a chameleon, and he likes to eat bugs. And some people say that's gross. It's not gross for him. See, everybody's different. You're different. I'm different. But you know what? We are a lot alike, too. Because you and I, we're humans. We're people. And we can take good care of the earth. And we can make the world a better place. And that's what I want to do. Raise your hand if you'd like to help me. Let's do it, and let's do it together. I think she just saw herself in the camera for the first time. She's staring right at herself. She probably doesn't know that it's her. I hope that you all enjoyed the program today. I hope that you'll all see us again sometime. We do birthday parties for kids. We do library programs for kids. We do school programs for kids. So there's many different ways that I can see you all again. Right now, I want to take a picture of her and every one of you. Can you all wave your hands at me? I can't actually see you, but that's all right. Hey guys, have a great rest of the summer. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much to the Serenius Booth Library in Newtown, Connecticut. We love the town and we're very happy to be a part of your community. Please help make the world a better place. Let's start by being kind to each other, kind to the animals, and let's take good care of the earth. Plant trees, plant flowers, help the birds, help the bees. Let's plant some flowers and trees. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.